Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. This video will be focusing more on the community side of SCR, as today's video is about how members of each role within the community think of their role. We will go all the way from guest to manager. This video will be separated into two parts. In the first part, we will analyze the chat of regular public server and see the social differences from guest to supervisor. Then I will interview people ranked from dispatcher to community manager about their experience within the SCR community. If you wish to know how I came up with the idea, you will surely understand by watching the whole video and understanding the message that this video is meant to share. Without any further ado, enjoy the video. Let's start now with the first part. As mentioned in the introduction, we begin our social experiment with analyzing the chat of a public server with members going from guest all the way to supervisors. I will put on the side of the chat counters, one per role, counting how many times people of a certain rank get ignored or disrespected. We will then at the end do a summary of what happened before passing on to the second part of the video. In the span of 11 minutes, we had a total of 7 times where people ranked from guest to qualified driver were either disrespected or ignored, 2 for dispatchers, 6 for guards, and 1 for supervisors. Concerning the signalers, please watch the second part of the video, as they still also do not get respected or they get ignored from time to time. Let's still take in consideration also that most of the SR community in the game is made up of people ranked from guest to qualified driver, so this big number of 7 is quite important, but the number of guards also is also quite important. I will not give any further opinions on this part of the video, as You should be in the right to build your own opinions on each segment of the video and what it covers. Let's now pass on to the second part of the video. In this second part, we will talk about the ranks from dispatcher all the way up to manager. I have interviewed randomly some members of the SCR community in-game, and I have also interviewed some of my longtime friends and also managers within the SCR community in order to bring you exactly this second part. They all had to answer 4 questions. The first question was, how would you simply explain your role? The second question was, what are the positive and negative aspects of your role within the community, mainly in Discord or also behind the scenes? The third question was, would you like to see your role being improved, or do you like it as it is? And the last question was just if they had any other revealing or important details that they wish to share with us. Let's now get started with the dispatcher role. Let's start off with the dispatcher role. For the first person that I have interviewed, it was quite random. I have interviewed a dispatcher as a driver role, and I've asked them the 4 questions. For the first question, they've answered pretty straightforward that they like to dispatch trains and drive trains. For the second question, it can make the dispatcher role a new way to grind points, and the negative part of the role is that some drivers do not have the patience actually to be dispatched and sometimes despawn. Then for the third question, she pretty much said that she wants to raise up to God and see what happens then, which is quite understandable. And for the last question, she feels very comfortable in the chat, so it's very great for her, and find it quite funny compared to other roles, which is, as she says, cool and nice, which is extremely great. Let's pass on to another point of view from a player named HelloLune21, still a dispatcher. For the first question, they've also simply answered that this role is just simply to dispatch trains at stations. Quite straightforward. For the positive side of their role, for them it creates different interactions and more than just driving a train. And for the negative part, it is also a role that requires more than driving and may therefore create conflict with other players. For the third question, they would like to see their role improved in a way that some rules get removed, like the rule where you have to wait for a train to get fully off the platform in order to switch to another train. And for the last question, they wish that there could have been a complete rework of the role to fix some, as they say, bottleneck issues created by this same role. Let's now pass on to our guard interviews. We begin with our first guard, that is a guard that actually decided to guard me during one of my driving sessions, so randomly I've decided to, interview him. And his answer to the first question was quite serious and professional in the way that he states that the guard role is meant to build a gap between passengers and drivers when you guard a train and ensure security and order. It's less for him about authority, it's not really into that, and more about guiding new people, new players of SCR into knowing the game more and then letting them have fun actually. The second answer to, the second question, he begins with the negative part of the role, where he states that this role is quite overlooked compared to other roles, and that it still has to carry an important social function for him. This can be very well understandable by just simply the fact that we have tons of active guards that play the game. The second part of the second answer to the second question for him was that people notice them more since you're high ranked, which is understandable, and that it feels important for them to, well, help the community, as they have mentioned in the first answer to the first question. The answer to the third question is that they like to see improvements in the way that guards would have more influence in the game, like communication, tools to interact with passengers and other people, and stand out more in the operation departments. The answer to the fourth question is that he believes that as a guard he is taught discipline and is said to have a great tone towards the community, even though we're gonna be honest, it's not the case for every single guard. And for him, this is the role that prepares him for the jump to randomly, casually being in the game, to actively and being really in the core of the game. Let's now pass on to Molly. Molly is one of my longtime friends and a member of the SCR community who has been guard for a long time, and he just starts by saying that his role is pretty much the highest role you can get without having to apply via Discord and Google Form applications. Now, for the positive and negative points, he starts by saying that on the positive side, it is the role that says you've passed the qualified driver, dispatcher, and guard trainings. For the negative parts, is that in-game, staff and content creators will get way more attentions than people ranked guard or below. The second negative point is that they have to wait a while for SG apps to open, and therefore there is lots and lots of guards in every single game, server, or even the chat in Discord. And he also has two side notes, the first one being that he understands that the signaler managers are doing their best, even though signaler applications of the supervisor role take a while to read and therefore delays a lot the SG applications, and the fact that when you are a guard you might have record breaking times of you just being in the guard role of SCR before passing on to another role or getting demoted, or demote yourself actually by leaving the group to another role.
Let's now pass on to the interviews of signalers. The first signaler that I have interviewed is called Daisy. I just interviewed him while in a public server randomly, and I've asked him the questions, simply enough. His answer to, the first question was quite simple, is that his role isn't made to make the driver's experience just very smooth, and also get correct priorities. The answer to the second question on the positive side was that he gets to engage with people of the community and also, signal in buddy zones, which is preferable due to the fact that there is more thing to do overall in buddy zones and you have more diversity. The negative part, however, is that sometimes the people within the chat of the game may disagree with his choice of signaling or whatever he says, whatever it can be. For his answer to the third question, however, he likes his signaler role, but he believes that in other games the signaler role is more realistic, but in those games you also have to pay in order to play it. Now, for the fourth question, he believes that some people just simply, as he states, underestimate the arguments that they often start because they might lose patience over a red signal or something like this, and they have to understand that priorities are a thing, and this is meant for everyone to just have a smooth experience of the game and not let everything go into chaos mode. Let's now pass on to the interview of one of my fellow Frenchies named Plutus. Plutus is a French signaler within the SCR community, and he has answered the 4 questions. His first answer to the first question was that the signaler role is meant to smoothen traffic for drivers, make it more enjoyable for everyone, prioritizing the good trains, and overall focusing on responsibility and good communication, while just overall, coordinating the network, as he stated. For the second question, he answered the positive side for him is that it has a really great and important impact on the community, not only by signaling but also by sharing knowledge and giving advice to players ranked same as him or below, or overall having fun, with other members. Now there is still a downside for him, is that the role requires a ton of calm, as like stated with Daisy. Some players might be impatient and you need to keep your patience and stay professional, as the signaler role brings you also commands, moderative commands within the game. For him, he would like to see his role being improved in 2 ways. The first way would be to choose which platform the train will go onto. For instance, at terminating platforms such as Stepford Central, it would be very useful in order to have a great train management. Now, you would also, for him, need to have some fixes towards the side of the cameras, because some cameras are actually quite glitchy and do not reveal enough information for sometimes the signaler and can be just way out of where they should actually be at. Now he finishes by letting us know actually that he believes that this role is a very great role, and among signalers the atmosphere is quite supportive, and even though many players wish to be like him into the signaler role, he is aware that, like most of us, this role is very hard to achieve nowadays, and like me, wishes the best of luck to everyone who is motivated to join the signaler team. Now, this was the end for the 2 persons we've interviewed for the SG department. But did you really think it was over for the signalers? There is still one signaler we have not talked about, and you probably know him very well. He is called Papahendra. And Papahendra has been interviewed and has answered to the 4 questions. Let's get started with him now. His first answer was just great, I'd say. He just loves his role. He just shows that he loves his role. He states that for him this is the best role because you're still the highest member, but you're not staff. So even though for him he really well states that the process to getting it is very hard, like Plutus, he believes that there should not be a huge wave still of signalers, and that he does not believe that the SG Training 2.0 will be out, and he believes even that it will be cancelled at some point. But we'll see about this. Let's now pass on to actually his second answer to, well, the second question. And this question said if there was any, like, positive and negative aspects, alright? So we have 2 things, and Papahendra only saw positivity in his role, which is extremely nice to hear. Now, his first point was the fact that this role is quite the important role within a public server, because he loves signaling, especially nowadays, because previously server size was only up to 30 players to join, and nowadays, well, they were for like 2 days for 100 people, but it didn't last much long. But nowadays they're actually at 75 players.
maximum. Another positive aspect for him is that not like supervisors, he doesn't have to meet a quota, so if he is inactive, he will not get just anything bad out of it. He can do whatever he wants without having any worries about getting demoted or anything negative. And his third point, quite straightforward, he is still very much respected, kind of like a supervisor in game, mainly because he and the other SGs also have powers such as respawn, mute, and kick. And talking about these commands, he tells us in his third answer that he does not like these actually because he doesn't like to moderate as a signaler because he's just not a staff, I believe. But he is also okay if the perms stay, but personally he doesn't like them. Another thing that he doesn't like much is that they have the idea of SG 2.0. He even said that he would like it to be cancelled. He believes it will be cancelled, and simply due to the fact that it would off GDs to become SGs in massive amounts. So these servers, public, will be flooded with signalers, and it does not believe that this is wise. And for him, the current application system and training is the right way to do it. And last but not least, he answered the fourth question about if he had any important details that he wanted to share. And his important detail was that signaling is actually very fun. Signaling is fun because you just need to study it a bit, you just need to get the hang of it, you need to have some confidence. You can also join his shift at Brendra's shift, kind of side note also. And then you will be good to go if you have the signaler role, as it is all you need to get to just enjoy the game as a signaler and signal zones.
Now, no more surprises, alright, we're just gonna pass on to, well, the supervisor role. The first supervisor out of two that I have interviewed is one of actually the new supervisors of the dispatching department, called Drüberflug. Tell me if I spell it wrong, because I'm not German, alright? She just states that she does trainings and casually just goes on public servers and engages a lot with the community and sometimes does in-game moderation. We had to do it because we're qualified and we do not need to request for commands or anything like signalers. And for his actually second answer, it will be related to the downside. And talking about the second answer, he believes that it is great to stand out a little because it makes us being, well, able to more interact with the community. But the downside, as I've stated, is that sometimes, because due to what we are and what we do, because we do have power in game, we sometimes actually get attacked. And in those situations, even though it's kind of hard, but we have to stay professional. And we do stay professional. And let's just go straight forward to the end because he's new, he doesn't have much thing to say, but it's really important to see also what the new people think of the role. And he states actually something that is very important, even though his third answer was just simply that he's new and he has not experienced much, but his fourth answer actually is very important. You need to keep that in mind. We are volunteers. We do not get paid, we do not have nothing, we just have quotas, and it would be great if you guys could keep in mind that we're just humans. Like you, we're gamers at the core, we just like to share and play games with each other. Now let's pass on to a more experienced supervisor called Tejas, who has been ranked supervisor in October of 2024, if I'm not wrong. And he answered the first question in quite a special way, I'd say. His first type of answer is just one word. Fun. No other words, just straight up fun. His other answer was just that he likes his role because he can abuse his powers. Obviously, he's joking, but you know. And when I asked him the second question, he actually believed that he was like, am I passing a manager position or something? And I was like, no, don't worry, it's just like a social experiment and the differences between each role. And he just straight up answered straight after this that the first positive side for him is that he loves to help the community. This is actually why we applied and why we mainly passed, because of the presentation section. We love and we want to help the community as much as possible. Now, second positive side is that you don't have to wait for anyone to use any powers of actions, whatever you have to use, not like signalers. Now, another positive side for him is that he loves the supervisor and above supervisor team. But there is still for him one negative aspect of this role, is that you might get trolled. Sometimes even people like try to impersonate us, meaning that they take our names into Roblox and make other people believe somehow that they are us, but if you look at the rank, they're not us, but yeah. And sometimes you also, as he says, legitimately, we get gaslighted. Now, his answer to the third question was actually quite straightforward. He likes the role in the game, but in the Discord server, he doesn't like it much. This can be understood by the fact that in the Discord server, we're just regular members. We're regular members, even though in the game we're staff, but we're just regular members, and this is because of the time where the supervisor role, my bad, has been separated into two parts. One supervisor role staying at the core with trainings, etc., and one moderator role introducing the moderator applications. Now, his answer to the fourth question, lastly, was that he believes that we're staff and we should get more information about the game, which is quite normal for him and us to think about, but actually we do not get much information. Sometimes the directors actually stream within our channels, our private channels, but this has become rarer.
Let's now finally pass on to the last interviews. I have interviewed an operational manager and a community manager. The operational manager is a guard manager named WorldGrain77, and the community manager is Pac-Man. WorldGrain actually has decided to answer in a more natural way, as I would say, with audio files, so I will put the audio files for you, and behind it put some gameplay of SCR. Enjoy.
I mean, to sum up my role as an operational manager, in a way, I'd just say it's a support role. You know, a lot of the time people ask me what I do as a manager, and often their idea of management is, you know, you demote people when they do something wrong, you onboard the new supervisors, you tell them what to do. But I think the thing that people don't realise is that the manager role is a lot more relaxed than, you know, what they might actually think. Day to day, a lot of the times we're just interacting with the community. Maybe we've got to do a couple of tickets, schedule some trainings, but aside from that, we're just there for the supervisors. If they've come across something that's going horribly wrong, they have a question that they want to ask us, or, you know, they've got into an argument that needs resolving, often at times the managers are the first people they come to. So we just need to be there to support the supervisors in what they do and make sure that things get resolved in a proper manner. Being in an operational manager role has brought quite a few different positive and negative aspects, but, and this might sound a bit weird to some people, but the main positive I actually think of when I think of what the role's brought me is it's actually built my confidence a bit. thinking back to when I was a supervisor in 2021, I didn't really interact with people. I just did the quota. I was actually quite shy, but 4 years later and a bit of time having to actually lead a department, I'd say it's actually built my confidence quite a bit, and I'm actually quite grateful for that, especially when it comes to having to meet the new supervisors. Originally, if new people had joined, I'd be quite hesitant to interact with them, but nowadays I'm quite open to interacting with people, and I'm very grateful for that. In terms of negatives, a lot of people would probably think the attention that you get from being a manager, which honestly I don't mind the attention. I do mind, however, the people constantly asking you to be their friends. Because, you go into a server, you have a bit of fun time with the community, you get along great with them, but about halfway through your interaction with them, towards the end of it, or even at the start of the interaction, you just start getting bombarded with friend requests and people asking to friend you. And as nice as people are, respectfully, I don't really know any of them. And let's be honest, they're only wanting to friend me because I'm a manager at SCR, but I'm no celebrity, I'm no high and mighty person. I'm just someone who helps run the guard department. So, yeah, I don't mind the attention, but just don't try to friend me just because I'm a manager. If you're someone that I get along with and I've had a bit of time to get to know, then who knows, maybe I will friend you. To be honest, I am actually quite happy with the manager role because I get along very well with my fellow guard managers. I get along quite well with all the managers, truthfully. Directors, they're quite nice to get along with as well, and the supervisor team overall were just a happy bunch. The only thing that I would like to try and make better in regards to my role is just overall approachability of people from the supervisor team and the community, but also just improve our ability to speak openly without the fear of being, criticised. Because thinking back to 2021, the ability for people to approach the managers and speak openly about their opinions has improved a lot. But there's still often times where people think that it's wrong and that, we're going to bite their heads off for something. It's not, really. Our job is to make things as easy as possible and to make sure that things are running properly. So people need to feel comfortable with approaching us and, letting their voices be heard. And the same applies to the managers as well. Thinking back to a couple of controversial issues, I won't bring any specific ones up, but members of the community would often think, oh, why didn't you speak up about this? Why did you let this get so bad? And, truthfully, we were just as worried as them to pipe up, because a lot of the managers do have their own views on certain things, but there are times where we feel like it would be wrong of us to voice those opinions and, potentially get on the bad side of the higher ups. So, if there was one thing that I'd like to make easier, it's for people to approach us by just knowing that we're not horrible, nasty people anymore, that we're managers, but also just for it to be slightly easier for the managers to voice their views as well without, fear of being criticised. Well, any revealing or important details about the role? There's not really anything major, but a lot of the times we do get asked things that, we thought a lot of people knew that some people don't actually know. So I guess now would be a good time to clear some of those up. Some people ask me a lot, oh, do you do the ranking for trainings, and all that. Believe it or not, for those people who don't actually know, we don't actually do the training ranking. That's all done by a bot, and that applies for all the manager roles. But if you ever get demoted, that is us. So just don't get demoted. To be honest, yeah, there's a lot of the information that people know is already out there, though. Um, some people do think that we hide away from the community as well. We try to keep it. We try to keep active, but if we're hiding away, it's often because we're doing our work behind the scenes. Scheduling trainings, handling reports, all that sort of stuff, just to make sure that the department's running properly. So, if you don't see a manager out and about frequently, don't think it's because we're dead to the world, because a lot of the time that's not the case. Um, a lot of people tend to ask me questions about applications as well. Um, we don't always have a set time for applications. If we ever decide that we want more supervisors, we usually just decide on a date when we're ready. Yeah, we'll do a bit of pre-preparation before the application, making sure that we have the app itself and the necessary documents. But we don't actually really decide on a date until most of that is ready. So if a supervisor batch has happened recently, don't think that we're already planning the next one, because chances are we're not. And that applies for most manager roles. And a lot of the time as well, if you ask a manager, when's this application for another department coming out, or when a Signaler application's coming out, a lot of the time we don't actually know. The applications are handled by their respective managers. So if you ask a different manager when something's happening, a lot of the time we don't actually know what's happening for that department. We find out when they open, when the community does. But overall, there's not much revealing stuff to be known. A lot of people already know about the manager stuff, but there are these little details that people think we know or we do that we actually don't. It's completely manager or situationally dependent.
So here you have it. You have the operational manager role. Now let's pass on to the community manager role. We have actually Pac-Man here. It was one of my fellow passers when we passed the application in September of 2024 of DS Supervisors. And he got ranked up quite fast actually to community manager. He answered the questions in just one block, and this block will be quite easy to do a summary of. He likes to manage application readers and moderators because he's in charge of them. And his role actually, by the way, is to manage social medias, the image of the game, the updates along with the community director of the game, and also manage the Discord server. For him, there is just zero negative points about his role, and he loves it as it is. Quite fair of him. And he loves finally to lead, reform the community, and overall make the game grow during updates, application seasons, and everything he can do to, make the game grow, as I've said. Here you go, everyone. This is the pre-end, I would say, of the video. I am actually now with this for the outro, and we thank you all for watching this video that we have made. This was literally my biggest video so far. It is not done, but it still is. It means a lot for me that you watch it all the way until the end and that you like the video that I make. This is even more important than liking or subscribing. The fact that you just like the content I make to you and that this content helps the community, for me, is actually by far the most important thing. There should be another video soon enough if the SCR direction allows it. Kind of logic to do one. You might already know what it is about, but yep. I recommend now that you watch until the end because it's gonna be funny. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching. See you soon. See you maybe when we'll talk in chats or talk in game, hopefully. And good night, good day, good sleep, good whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your pleasure today, enjoy some W failures. Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. This video is gonna cover something quite unusual. We're still gonna talk about SCR. In fact, we're gonna talk about the ranks all the way from the guest role, which is not really a group role, but you know what I mean, all the way to manager. Let's get started, shall we? Alright. No, we're not gonna get started. Flip it, this buddy. As the first card that I will... Nope, that is not gonna work. Alright.